It is now my pleasure to introduce this evening's special guests, Anil Kumar and Bobbie Anil, parents of Vikram, a 27-year-old youngster diagnosed with severe autism. Vikram is non-verbal, and for 27 years, he could not communicate and express himself. His parents here had tried just about everything, from the scientific to the occult, ranging from allopathy, homeopathy, naturopathy, Ayurveda, surgery, and finally Siddha, and moving across continents from India to Middle East and the United States. Until 2 years ago, when they discovered spelling to communicate tool and rapid prompting method by Soma. For the first time, Vikram started to express his feelings and have a conversation with his parents. This evening, our guests will be sharing Vikram's journey from being trapped inside his body for 27 years to expressing and writing amazing poetry today. A very warm welcome to both of you, Mr. Anil and Mrs. Bobbie. It is indeed very inspirational. We look forward to hearing about your journey, your takeaways, and how your lives have changed since Vikram started communicating. And I would also like to add here that Vikram's younger sister, Jilika, pursues research in autism, and she too has been a huge pillar in his journey. Over to the two of you now.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mitra.
Thanks for having us over and giving us this opportunity to share our journey. I know many of you are going through similar struggles and similar journeys, and this is our journey with our 29-year-old beautiful boy who's there sitting next to his dad, Vikram. So, hey, Vikram. Yeah. So I'm going to split today's session into two sections. So let me just pull up the PowerPoint.
So Vikram's mission in life is to share his journey and inspire as many people to never give up. So that was what he had written earlier, and he's very happy to be here. We'll ask you what you think about it later. Okay, Vikram?
We're waiting to hear from him.
Yeah. So, yeah, this is I'm splitting into two parts. One is Vicky, 1 to 27 years old, where he was a complete enigma to us. And the other is 27 to now, he's 29. So the first phase, we did not know Vikram at all. We had no clue what he was capable of, his level of understanding. His life pretty much revolved around his stims and his outbursts and his meltdowns and his screams. And at that point in time, we were just, hoping that he was a happy person, and our focus was on that, along with, finding treatments for him. But he was just in his own world. We were finding it very difficult to reach to him, like most of you parents of autistics would relate to. And he would repeat the same song thousands of times. And, he had all his compulsions that we had to deal with. So Vikram, as a child, he used to have about 200 seizures a day or more, actually. And for 27 years of his life, he functioned at the level of maybe a 2-year-old, or in some cases, even a 1-year-old. Absolutely very little self-help skills, no communication at all. I mean, he couldn't call me mom, or nor could he even tell me whether he was in any pain or hungry or nothing. That was his life for 27 years. And the experts, the doctors, and wherever we went to, they gave us very little hope. But we did not give up. We continued our pursuit for a cure for both his epilepsy and the autism or the symptoms. And
there were several times when I thought it's time to give up, but Bobbie never did. Bobbie kept pushing on and on. Every day she would wake up and say, okay, let's try this today. So she's never given up.
So when he was 5, when Vic was 5, we moved to California. My Anand took up a job there, and because at that time Los Angeles was the epicenter of research for autism, so we decided he got a job. We moved in there, and he received therapy every waking hour of his. There was this theory at that time that a new different part of the brain would take over, and he might just start functioning better. But he actually got worse. His epilepsy seizures got worse, and then we even had to insert a vagus nerve stimulator, which is like a pacemaker kind of device in his chest, hoping that would reduce his seizures. Unfortunately, even that got him, his situation just deteriorated after that, and we had to remove it 2 years later. We continued our search, and finally we found treatment for his epilepsy in our backyard in Kerala. This was a Siddha Vaidya, and he told us, this was 20 years ago, he told us that you are looking at the wrong area. It's not his brain, it's his gut. At that time, we found it now, I mean, everybody knows it's the gut, most of us at least. But at that time, it was totally new to us. And so he started treatment with him, treating his gut. And within 3 months, his seizures came down by 90%. And this was when the best doctors in LA told us that there was no treatment for her seizures. And at that time, it was just increasing in duration and intensity and numbers. It was just going up. And the Siddha Vaidya managed to bring it down by 90% in 3 months. So he put him on a strict dietary regimen of vegetarian food, gluten-free, casein-free, no colorants, no preservatives, and no chilies, and no mustard. And Vicky's been on this diet for 20 years. And each time we deviate from the diet, we notice a change in his behavior and tantrums, and sometimes he gets some small seizure as well. So we've been careful about his diet for the last 20 years. Now, while his seizures improved, he continued to function at the very lowest level of the spectrum, and he was considered extremely challenged cognitively, with no ability to communicate his basic needs. His academics was limited to kindergarten level at the max. Still on alphabets, 27 years, it was A to Z, lowercase, uppercase, 1 to 10, 10 to 20, and even 10 to 20 was difficult. And in July 2019, when he was 27, one of the goals in school was for him to spell half his first name, V-I-K, because the whole name was too much. Our Vikram, 6 letters was too much. So V-I-K, that was the goal. So this is where we were. This is the first half when he was 27. Now the second half is, let me just move the slide. Sorry. The second half, yes, that's 27 to current. So now in 2019, my daughter, who's studying at Georgia Tech, she's 7 years younger to him, she was researching on autism, and she came across many individuals like my son who were like severely autistic individual external. Now I would always add externally after my current experience that I've had with my son and boys like individuals like him actually. So she sent us some amazing videos of people who appeared to be very severe. I'm going to share you one of the videos, and this really changed our perspective on autism, and it gave us a lot of hope. Let me just play this video for you.
This is my
this is a boy, Reese, who, if you see, appears to be severe, and he was actually an eye-opener for us. I'm just going to...
Lessons that boy has taught me and showed to you how much he has to offer to this world. Most people see his odd behavior and they walk away. Most people turn a blind eye to individuals with autism. But if we spend time to dig deeper, we can uncover an entirely different story. Reese has so much to say.
So this video was actually shot by my daughter. He was communicating with her, and what he wrote to her really blew our minds. What he's written is, the hardest thing about being unable to communicate is the perception others have that I am ignorant. Please excuse my devilish body. My intelligent mind is frequently embarrassed by uncontrollable outbursts. This line really, well, it was like an aha moment for us. And we wondered, what if Vic is like that? Externally, he appears to be having all these uncontrollable outbursts. And what if he's intelligent inside? So this kind of got us started on our further research on autism and whether we should actually give it a try. And then I came across another video by Parisa Khosravi. She was a senior vice president at CNN, and she's a parent of a boy on the spectrum. And
This is my brother.
And watching her video kind of helped us make a decision to actually, let me just play some relevant parts here. Let me just...
Only able to express himself in the most basic manner with a few simple words, leaving us to wonder what he was feeling or thinking, or if even how much he understood of all that we were teaching him. I kept my eyes open for any new methods of communication while remaining very cautious as to what we actually tried. Incidentally, a few years back, I'd heard about RPM, rapid prompting method, which essentially helps those who are non-verbal or non-reliable speakers to communicate by expressing their thoughts letter by letter on an alphabet board. As I looked into it, I got concerned because the experts were saying that this method is not legitimate, that it's really not the kids who are writing, rather it's their teachers moving the board and spelling for them. I was worried about regression again, so I did not pursue RPM based on what I was hearing from the experts. It's interesting, though, how life works. This past year, I happened to talk to two moms in different parts of the country, only a few weeks apart. It was like serendipity. And they both told me about their kids' great success with RPM. Throughout all these years, I have learned that the best source of information are other parents with similar challenges. And what I was reading and hearing from many of them regarding this method was fascinating. I also attended a workshop where I watched kids communicate on the alphabet board. This is a sample of one of the RPM boards. There are different stages to these alphabet boards. This is a more advanced laminate board. So I made an appointment with an excellent experienced teacher in this method. And she treated Payam like a typical kid and presumed that he's fully competent. From the very first session, Payam started showing us that he understood everything and comprehended everything that she was reading to him, and started answering questions related to the lesson on the alphabet board. I couldn't believe my eyes. Here was my 14-year-old who had barely been able to communicate for all these years. And finally, we were getting a glimpse inside his thoughts. But my skeptic journalist mind kept questioning the fact that he was actually writing the answers on the board. So I kept going back to his sessions week after week. I had to double check, triple check, and quadruple check. I watched in disbelief as Payam understood every lesson read to him, ranging from 3D printers to how the brain works, to Gandhi's philosophy and aurora lights. I observed him for 8 weeks, 8 sessions, talked to other moms, and read an incredible book called Edo in Autism Land. Finally, at last, I believed. For so many.
Okay, so this was this video just got us going. We said, yes, we need to pack our bags and go and give this a try. So we actually, both of us, like, we gave up our jobs, we locked up our house, and our daughter was in Atlanta. So we went down there, and at that time, we did not have any S2C therapists in Dubai, so we had to go. Fortunately, now I did see Kamlini on the screen just now. I think she is here. Kamlini, if you're here, hi. So she is now doing it in Dubai. So parents, at least in Dubai, don't need to go fly to America. So, but we had to, and at the time that we went, our objective was just to get 3 or 4 lines out of him. Mom, I'm in pain, I am hungry, or my head is hurting, or that. Those were that. If that we achieved in 6 months, it would have been a miracle for us then. And when we reached the place, the center there, they asked us, "Is this your objective? You know, you're going to be surprised." And we said, "Yeah." You know, it's how much can he go? So when we landed, so let me show you what I actually, we left in July end. So July, before we landed, we went ahead and we bought, my screen is not, sorry, I'm having trouble moving, going on to the next slide. Yeah, so this is what I bought for him in July 2019 when he was 27. And I thought, let me just make sure he at least can do his alphabets properly. Otherwise, I'm going to waste a lot of money there, starting with ABCDs. And we were actually, with this particular puzzle, exactly this one, he wasn't successful. And I said, oh my God, are we, is this a foolish decision for us to go? And, but anyway, luckily, we decided to go. And when we went there, we started RPM, and RPM is started by this wonderful Indian lady, Soma. And she's been practicing in the US for the last, I don't know, 20, 30 years. And Vicky calls her his life changer. So she and RPM, or S2C as it's called, they talk about presuming competence. So the therapists, they were talking to Vikram like a 29-year-old, and my husband and I were saying they don't know our son. I mean, he doesn't understand any of this, and they kept telling us presume competence, presume competence. So what is presuming competence? Let me just give you an idea, because this is one of the key elements can you hear?
A student has the intellectual ability to understand and to learn.
It's an outlook and a stance that recognizes that people who present in certain ways where, you know, their eye gaze doesn't indicate interest or demonstrate sort of what looks like listening, doesn't imply that the person is also cognitively challenged.
If someone walks through my door, I believe simply they can and they want to learn. I'm going to talk to them with the same respect and dignity that I would with anybody else their same age. And I'm going to present them with a lot of varied opportunities to learn the material that I'm teaching. I think because the population that we work with isn't often able to show evidence that they understand, because we know all of the tests, all of the things where we measure intelligence require fine motor, which our guys struggle with. So I don't need that evidence to believe in you. I believe in you simply because I know what you're capable of.
If, for example, you were to meet Stephen Hawkins in a group home, or someone that you love who has Parkinson's for the first time, if you were to meet them in a group home or in a sort of setting that doesn't cue you into what they're actually capable of, you would not presume that Stephen Hawkins is competent, because you would only impose the lens of a neurotypical person's body capacity, and you would assume that that person is not capable of learning.
So, yeah, so now I realize how important it's key. Presuming competence is one of the key elements. That's the lesson one that I learned from this program, that if you do not presume confidence, then there's no point in doing this program. And that is why they kept harping on the fact that we had to presume competence, and they were treating Vicky like a 29-year-old, like his knowledge, his language, everything was that of a 29-year-old. Unfortunately, they were right. They were right and we were wrong. We were totally wrong. We were like way off. And not just Vikram, all the other kids that we saw as well were, as intelligent as their age was, but externally it was just another totally different. So 6 months of staying in Atlanta was life-changing, and he started to communicate on the spelling board. The initial months were very tough, because he would not sit in one place. He would want to run away. He would sit in the car. We would have to drag him out of the car, and he would want to stim. And it was not easy at all. But the therapists were also, they knew what is inside the child. We did not, but they knew. And then they went on and on. They would even come to the car and do a session, or sit at the reception area and do the session. And then we met the lovely lady Soma. I mean, I have so much of respect for this woman. She is like God to me. And Vikram just started talking, and his language just blew us away. Let me just show you the second month was how he was in the second month.
So she put eyes, think about looking at the board. You turn a little bit. Your turn. Not W, but shift it. B, good. Lift all the way up. Almost. A, good. Big pop in the middle. So we got A. Now where are you going?
There's a lot of prompting initially.
Get it. Not E. Those eyes with you. No distracted. C, good.
The audio isn't very clear, Bobbie. So if you could explain what's going on.
Okay. So this is the probably the second month, where again Vicky is not really. He needed a lot of prompts. And as you look, he's looking at her face, he's looking away, and then he looks at me, and you would get the feeling that he doesn't know what to do. But later you see the change, and at this stage we were even doubting whether there was any point in this. Where was he randomly pointing? Was she helping him too much? And so this is
all right.
But what happened is,
okay, and what was
music in the car? Okay, then we go.
How did I describe
he was asking for music.
What
That's
was
one of
the
the
synonym that
steps.
I used? Another word to describe this. What about absent?
So yeah, sorry, I've gone to the next slide. But what happened is that within 6 months, we started seeing the intelligent person behind this facade, and his expressive language was very well advanced and well above a person, probably his age. and he was able to spell most words. He did not need to be taught spelling. He knew the spelling like all the other kids, and he was able to write on topics like quantum physics and philosophy. So among the first few words he told us, or rather he spoke to us through the therapist, and he said, "Mom, please don't stop pushing me and loving me the way you do. I love you." I mean, these were something where we were just, 27 years, and we got to hear these beautiful, beautiful words. And he said, when I asked him if he ever gave up, he said, "No, I never, because I knew you would never give up on me." And then he told his dad how much he loved him and thanked him for accepting him and continuing to work hard. So this was a child, like I said, where we were teaching him his ABCDs when we left just a few months back. So he was able to tell the doctor also, like, what troubles you the most. So we got to know that more than anything else, it was his body being uncontrollable. We understand, we are able to understand the behavior he displays so well, thanks to him explaining it to us, where he says his body is uncontrollable. He wants to do one thing, but he does the other. And then he doesn't like being judged as disabled, and his stomach discomfort, lack of energy, not independent. And he actually wants to have a social life, though people think that they do not want to, but he says he's unable to because of the eye contact issues and language and all that. And then I asked him, what about speaking? Do you want to? Does it not figure in your list here? And he said, no, last, because now I can communicate using this. So that is like after later down the list. He's happy just being able to communicate using the spelling board. So, so this was in the US, and when we stayed there for 6 months, therapy almost every day, and he was communicating his thoughts and feelings to the therapist, but not to us. With us, there was absolutely, you give him the spelling board, it's like he doesn't know what to do with it. He would just stare at it and not do much. But we did get trained, and watching him for 6 months every day, we knew what was to be done, but he just wasn't doing it. And the therapist said that was natural. We would have to work a lot more. So we got back to Dubai, and at that time, thanks to the lockdown here, we got back in January, and March the lockdown started. So we were stuck at home, and in a way, the situation was a blessing in disguise for us, because we spent almost all our time with Vikram working on his communication. It was quite a challenge. He would run away from the room, and I would lock the door with my husband inside, just make him sit, or the other way around. And we just persisted and persisted. And in 3 months from then, and this was every day, 7 days a week, and we luckily, like the lockdown, there was no going out, there was nothing, so we were just doing this. And he started, and once he started, there was no stopping him. It just started, and he just blew our minds away by his literary skills. And for a boy who could not, even spell his name, he had with no operational or functional communication. He seemed to be very, very comfortable when he was introduced to the poetry. So the lesson 2 that I learned is that, most of us are happy with just the operational or functional skills. As in, the need to communicate basic needs, like I'm hungry, I wanted to go potty, go outside and, play and things like that. So while he did all of this, the part that blew our expectations was his ability to talk, to converse, and even write beautiful, expressive poetry. He was able to express himself and his thoughts in such a moving manner, and in a very, very intensive way. I'll be showing you some of his poems later. So let me just move on to So this was a questions asked by a radio show host, and we got his answers. So these were his answers. How do you feel about being able to communicate? It's totally imprisoning. Oh, sorry. Let me just. Yeah. So I mean, he was able to. These are all his words. Not a single word of is not his. So and the spellings and everything are his. So he wants the world to know that autistics are intelligent, and please don't go by the external facade of them not understanding anything. So let me just play a video when we are in Dubai after the first 3 or 4 months. This is what
do you have to say to Jilika for this nice present, your lifeline for you right now, as far as communication goes? And am. Come on. Yeah.
Speed. Now you're going to get speed.
S-O-H A-B-B-Y.
Happy?
I'm so happy.
Happy for what?
T-O-2-B-E-B. Okay. A-B-L-E-T-O. Two. I'm so happy to be able to C-O-M-M-U-N-I-C-A-G-E. Communicate. Okay. Yes.
We're all so happy, Vic.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is going to be the new beginning. Alrighty.
So yeah, this is how he was a few months into our sessions with him in Dubai. And he's now moved on to the iPad. So most of his poetry he writes on the iPad, and we are working on him going to the a laptop as well. So he tells us that he's been observing the world all these years. He's been understanding everything just like a regular person does. And he's been listening to other people talk, and he's been learning from television, from books, from newspapers. You know, he's been just like a regular person behind this this facade. And about a year ago, he watched the Netflix series Emily Dickinson and the famous American poet. And he was just totally mesmerized. He stared at the entire series. He wouldn't budge. And then when he has a wonderful physics teacher. By then we had many volunteers working with him on different subjects and in Dubai, and it was all through Zoom. And his physics teacher, Namita, who's been excellent with him, he asked her whether she could explain to him the technicalities and the nuances of writing a sonnet. So she explained how many lines, how many words and all that. And then there was just no stopping him. So Vic, the first poem that he wrote was this, My Stims. Now, apart from his skill in poetry writing, what it shows is it gave us such a clear understanding of how much our kids are struggling against their stims. Because sometimes we just get angry and we say, stop stimming. And now I realized he wants to stop it more than I do. And his words are so powerful. And, he's like, where is it? Stop, who gives you that right to you to live my life for me, to ruin my sojourn? And my spirit is strong and I will prevail. And he tells us he is just struggling against the stims, and he keeps telling me, is there anything you can do about my stims? He stims even now. He has all the, of course, it's much less, and his outbursts are less. And if there are outbursts, he tells me why. And he says he's a slave to his habits and he's not able to give up the habits. So we are now actually working on keep reminding him, this is an old habit, you need to work on developing new habits. So we try to replace the old with a new habit. And it is working to a large extent. But of course, yeah, we need to do the biomedical approach as well to help reduce the, now we see two problems. One is OCD, and yeah, that is the stimming. So that's a major problem that he's facing. So we are looking at ways that we can reduce the OCD. And again, I'm seeing a lot of relation to what he eats and his OCD on those days. So let me just show you some of a glimpse. This is one, the last pair of another poem he wrote. And we actually have to ask him an explanation after he writes each poem, because it's so deep. And this was Wings of the Mind. And he is very philosophical, and he listens to a lot of Vedanta. And I'm sure that this is all, he's getting a lot from that. And I must say, this is a sonnet about 16 lines. This is the last para, and he takes about 1 hour to write it. No edits, nothing. He just does it straight. This is another poem. And that's him with his spelling board there. And so before I conclude, I'd like to play a video of his songs. The first song, My Stims, was converted to a music video. And I'll just play it now. And after that, if there are any questions, feel free to ask us. Yeah. Let me just play the video for you.
Hi, my name is Vikram. An important aspect of my identity is that I am a non-speaking autistic individual. I convey my innermost thoughts through verse. For 27 years, I have silently observed the world with limited ability to communicate my most basic needs. After 6 months of daily S2C and RPM therapy sessions in Atlanta, I learned to type my first words on a letterboard. Today, I am an aspiring poet. Through the words of this song, I have a message to share with the world about my stems.
What gives you the right to be so cruel? So cruel to my other self. I only wanted to be your friend and walk the earth, but you only want to send me straight to hell. What gives you the right to live my life and waste it all away? I can't help but wonder why you hate me so, 'cause you took my home and you ruined my stay. You try to shake my faith like Satan, plant demons in my head. But I live amongst the angels, and they hold me up so I can fight until the end. I will win the war. You can laugh right now, 'cause my spirit's strong and my mind will break the fall. I will win the war. You can take the battle, 'cause I prevail, and love will conquer all. What gives you the right to keep me cuffed? Hurt me with all your strength. I've only wished for a normal life. Don't ask for much, all I want to do is sleep in peace again. You try to shake my faith like Satan, plant demons in my head. But I live amongst the angels, and they hold me up so I can fight until the end. I will win the war. You can laugh right now, 'cause my spirit's strong and my mind will break the fall. I You can take the battle, 'cause I'll prevail and love will conquer all. I will win the war. You can laugh right now, 'cause my spirit's strong and my mind will break the fall. I will win the war. You can take the battle, 'cause I'll prevail and love will conquer all.
That was, I'm speechless. I think you moved everybody who are here today. And Vikram is such a gift. You're really blessed to have him as your son.
Yes,
Right? It's the most precious gift, seriously.
Yes.
And what an absolute inspirational journey this has been. I can tell wherever you are today as a family, I can see and I can tell that you must be really, standing tall and proud from all the teachings, that has come from hardships, challenges, ups and downs, and some, wonderful moments that you actually celebrated at Vikram's journey. Thank you for being with us today and opening our eyes to something and opening doors to many who are going through a similar situation, and it might have an impact on their lives too. RPM was introduced, and I think for Vikram and as well as for you as parents, and also Jilika, you were kind of rediscovering each other, right? How was that feeling? How did you feel when he first? What was the first thing that he told you when he kind of knew how to use the tool and express himself? How was your emotion at that time? What did you feel?
Very difficult. We were just crying and crying. All of us were crying. And it was just too much to handle. Sometimes there was even in between, there was disbelief. Did he fool us for 27 years? And it was, for us now, Anil can also talk about it. It's like having a new baby. We are in our 50s, but we have a 2-year-old who's got the 29-year-old, but
I think the hardest part of accepting the fact that he's a full-blown 29-year-old for all practical purposes, cognitively, his brain is that of a 29-year-old. That's the toughest part to really take, from almost an infant, like as Parisa was saying, or the other lady who was talking about Stephen Hawking, who's one of the brightest minds with an IQ of over 160. Because he's in a physically disadvantaged position, sitting in a wheelchair, unable to move, people tend to treat you as a person with mental disabilities as well. And cognitive capabilities are right down to the bottom. So I think the first thing that we ourselves had to comprehend is the extent of his intellect. I remember he read a lesson about Shackleton landing on the South Pole. And the lady asked him after the lesson, Shackleton had taken 5 men in a boat, and they got down at they were the first to lay foot on the Antarctic. And she asked him after that, how many people landed on the Antarctic? And mine and Bobbie's mind immediately said 5 people, and he said 6. And he said, oh no, he doesn't know how to add. And then she said, he's right. Why? Because Shackleton plus 5 people, right? That is the first time we realized that he can actually use his brain. And this was in 27 years. And then once we came back, they kept telling us, don't give him Barney, don't give him all the usual, even at 25 years old, it was the same lullabies and stuff like that we were feeding him. We were not feeding his intellect. We're talking to him like a baby, talking to him like a person who barely understands what we're saying. We still treat him like a 2-year-old, baby-like emotional speech. Cut that out. They just said, they were absolutely brutal about it. They said, don't treat him like a child. Treat him like he understands every word. And that was the hardest part for us. This assume competence is such a huge term. So one message that Bobbie and I would like to pass on is, do not treat these individuals of any disability like they are lesser beings in any form or shape. They are intellectually competent. They're intellectually, cognitively extremely able. Many of them are smarter than what we are ourselves. And we assume for so many years that they have been inferior in some ways. Not true at all. Cognitively, they are far, far ahead of many of the people we are ourselves and what we know. As Bobbie was saying, all of this poetry was just written in one shot. No edits, no going back, no spellings. And you teach him a new concept. Like the other day, he was writing a haiku, and Namita was teaching him how to write an anaphora. She explained it. We were sitting in the class. I didn't understand it as much. Bobbie didn't understand it as much. He said, are you ready to write? He said, yes. And in the next 45 minutes, he belted out a beautiful anaphora, all the concepts, plus adding his own flavor to it, including rhyming, including stuff that we had not asked him to do. So he created his own poetry from a lesson that only the basics were taught him.
It's so amazing, that it's brilliant. His vocabulary, I think it's really it's kind of left us speechless. Like you.
Not just his, all the other kids we've seen doing this, their vocabulary, it's not just Vikram. It's amazing. Parisa's son, the lady who talked, her son writes short stories. And I thought, and she said, it's a very powerful story, is it? And I said, how powerful can a short story get? And it was probably just 2 pages. And we were completely blown away by the depth of the story. I don't think I've read any story so deep in just 2 pages.
Right. So did they pick up the vocabulary from the school that he was going to while he was growing up, or or it was all hidden inside and it kind of just
his school vocabulary was cat, dog, at that level, because he couldn't write his name Vikram as well. The best he could get to was VIK. But the words that he's using, we keep asking him this, where does it come from? Some of it is, we can't explain it, because many of the words that he uses are not even regular words that you would hear on TV. He says, I learned a lot from TV. And the way he strings those words together is not spoken other than in literary circles. So many words. When we are doing the spelling and we're forming a word, we form a word in our mind. If he writes AN, we think it could be this or it could be that. Or when he's typing on the iPad mini, they suggest words, right? The text, predictive text come up. And we think he's going to choose one of those words. He just keeps typing and it'll be a long word, which we never thought of. It's just something that we have no idea where he's got it from, honestly.
Okay.
One of the therapists mentioned to me, which I think is true, is that when we talk, we are also thinking to respond. But for him, 27 years, it's just taking in everything. So he's retained a lot more and not, the energy has not been going out. So could be.
So what routine was followed for Vicky all these years for him, including therapies? What about his schooling?
Yeah, he started school in Dubai, and then that must have been around 2 years. He started preschool, and then we got to know. Then we had to put him in a special needs school, and then we went to the US when he was 5. He was in a school with other children like him, and there we followed a bridge program where. It was like the Ivor Lovas had started the current day ABA. So it was, so in his school, whatever was taught, they were therapists who would come home, in fact, actually walk back home from school with him and then continue the sessions with him. So it was almost 40-50 hours of therapy. Plus, he had speech therapy, occupational therapy, physical therapy, and it was very intensive. And then then we came back to Dubai, and then he joined a school here, special needs school. So he's always been in special needs school, and even in those schools, he's been actually at the bottom of the rung. It was more, go there to kill time, because he just showed no progress at all. The teachers were excellent. The schools were very good, but somehow we all thought that Vic was just, he just couldn't learn. Now he says he was absolutely so bored with the ABCD and all that. They just refused to perform.
We've tried Ayurveda in the cortical sense, not the Siddha. Somebody's asked who's the Siddha Vaidya. He was just a guy practicing on his own. It's a story in itself. He didn't look competent enough. He was living in a small home. Not even a home, it was almost a hut. And what he did with Vicky was something that we could not comprehend would work, because all the best doctors in the world were treating him. And he said the problem is not with his brain, it's with his intestines and his gut. We didn't really take it too seriously. We took the medicines to the US, put it there, forgot all about it. And then we attended a seminar where Dr. Andrew Wakefield presented for the first time that his understanding also was the problem is with the gut, and that is where the problem starts. And we quickly started the Siddha treatment.
A year and a half ago, through cortical in Kerala, and he immediately said that his stomach pain has come down, and he also told us that he's been having stomach pains all his life. So that was could have been one of the reasons for their outbursts and their irritability. And he says, finally, now it's gone. So that helped. And also the gut healing helped his drooling. He stopped drooling. So this was almost 1 month into a gut healing medication.
There are many parents who would definitely want to start at least exploring RPM for their children. How do they start? What is the first step? What should they do?
See, like I don't know how many people are in Dubai, but in Dubai we have a therapist now. This therapist, she's a speech therapist at Al Noor Center, where she worked for about maybe 20-30 years. And then she did this because she saw the change in my son, and she's known my son for ages, and then she saw what he was doing, and now she's successful with all the kids that have gone to her in Dubai at different levels. They are starting to spell, and India, I mean, there are even, I think she does online, and there are some therapists in US as well who do online. But I think if there are any professionals here, if they can do the course, even parents can do it. But I just feel with us parents, what happens is the kid behaves with us in a certain way, and they have developed a habit of behaving in a certain way. So to break that is very, very difficult. So if you get a therapist to do that, and then eventually parents, start working on with the child. So there are training programs for parents as well. And but I just feel that my fear is that when parents try and they don't succeed for a few months, they might give up. So if a therapist does it, again, you need to have complete faith in it, and 3 months or 4 months of intensive is what I did to even get started. So they do offer training. There's a center in Washington, DC that does training. Soma, who started it, her training is very short. It's a week long, and I don't know, because I think you need a lot of practice. So maybe once you have practice and you do Somas is fine.
Right. I was reading about the blog and the journey of Vikram, but I feel I think Jilika has been instrumental in introducing technology, right? From what I read, She's been a game changer for all of you, right? Can you just tell us a little bit about how her relationship with Vikram? Read that she's researching on autism and working with several individuals. Okay.
Anil, can you give that card she sent today if you can find it?
Oh gosh.
She and Vicky were are very, very attached. And I mean, we actually had her because we thought Vicky needed somebody in his life. And but then when she went off to Georgia Tech, we thought that's it, like, and she chose some different subjects not related to autism at all. But eventually, when she had to do some research, she got back into autism. And it's her attachment, God's blessings, everything. And then she did come across a professor. Her professor had 2 kids on the spectrum, and then they talked about it, and then she got to meet many other kids. Yeah. So yeah.
Very
So
I got the card.
Today she sent. Maybe you can leave 1 or 2 sentences from the card.
Oh, she's not here in Dubai with all of
No,
you?
she's in America.
Okay, all right.
She's working there now. So she just sent a card by courier to him. Dearest brother, powerful demigod, I'm writing this card to you to share how incredibly proud I am of your beautiful form of self-expression through poetry and your warrior-like spirit gain mastery and self-control over your body. When it is dark looking at stars, when it is dark, look for stars, has been a perpetual theme that you have taught me to embody. From a place of darkness, you have reminded my inner child to look into the bright shining light and gain that cosmic perspective of the stars, what we are made of, and how to shine our inner light through the darkness of space and time. You are a star, beaming your light of pure unconditional love. She's written more, but that's what she wrote to him. He's always thanking people. He's always very cognizant of the fact that his journey would not have been easy without certain people. If you ask him the 5 most impactful people in his life, the Siddha Vaidya comes first or second on his list. Soma is number 3 or 4 on his list. Of course, mom is number 1, always. Very, very attached to his sister. Though they seem so emotionally disconnected, there's his nephew, rather his cousin, Bobby's brother's son, who's in the US, got married to this girl in the US. She's an American girl. She had come to see him, and after they got married, they had never met. So she wanted to buy an Indian dress. His sister had just gifted him some money for his birthday, and when she liked a dress, he said, "I would like to pay for it."
Wow.
All his money went to pay for her dress.
Such emotional maturity. It was all hidden. Exactly. My God, it really amazes all of us, right?
Yeah. It's all these children are the same. Huh? All these children are amazing kids. It's not just Vikram.
Yes.
Yeah, it's just that we don't see through that opaqueness of lack of communication, which is not to say that they are not as emotionally charged beings, but materially extremely. He doesn't care for himself. He doesn't want to buy anything for himself. When we ask him what would you like with your money, he says, "You're giving me everything. I don't need anything." But he was very happy to buy a dress for Haley, who's getting married next month, and they're doing a ceremony in Bangalore. We're all planning to go. He's so thrilled about the whole thing, just as anyone else is.
So sweet.
That's in our case, but there are several kids who can communicate, and many parents stop short saying that my child can communicate. But oftentimes we try and break the communication paradigm into 2 areas. One is operational communication. I'm hungry, I'm sad, I'm happy, I need to go out, I need to go to the toilet. That's all what we call the operational or functional communication. But beyond that, there is the emotional ability to have a normal conversation about the weather, or just talk about food, or about regular things. that communication is oftentimes overlooked by parents who just assume that communication that is functional is good enough. But clearly that does not sustain you for life. So what RPM really taught us is functional communication is good, it's needed, but the fact that they have far beyond that, and that is the part that gives them the richness of their life, that should be explored far more. So I think parents can feed their kids with more intellectually rich data. It could be YouTubes, it could be movies, it could be just content of books that they read. They're actually reading. Vikram can read, though he's not taught formally how to read. He reads holding the book upside down as well. He still reads. So I think there's so much in them that we don't understand. But I think, as Bobbie said, assume competence, and then the rest flows from there.
I think I've covered all the questions from the chat box, and so much of insights and learning today. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Because I think it's opened doors for a lot of people. I think it's a new, fairly a new concept for most of us. And I'm sure if anybody, if anyone reaches out to us needing more help, and we will definitely need your help, and we will probably connect them with both of you.
Because what we have seen is that all the parents we spoke to and all the therapists we spoke to who tried RPM, especially with non-verbal kids, there was 100% success, including all the parents that we pushed in Dubai to go to Kamlini. The only piece of advice that Bobbie used to give them was try it for 3 months. If it doesn't work at all in 3 months, then you can give up. It's not cheap. So try it for 3 months. If it doesn't work, pull out. But we've not seen anybody who's given up because in about a month or two, they start to show signs of communication. Some of them are racing ahead.
Okay. Thank you, Sujini. And on behalf of Mitra for Life and all the parents here this evening, I'd like to thank our guests, Anil Kumar Kunath and Bobbie, for giving us their valuable time and sharing your amazing journey with Vikram. It is so inspiring indeed, and it's sure to inspire a lot of parents. Thank you again, and many congratulations to both of you on just your perseverance and not giving up, and all our best wishes to Vikram.